everyone, and welcome to another very, very exciting edition of the
We don't
only
have a name for this
Facebook
thing, do we?
Live show with the longest Facebook group name in the history of Facebook group names, the Prepared Growth for Business Owners group thing.
Actually, I cut it down. We just call it growth-focused business owners now.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, because you were
I'm
just
so
stumbling
excited.
over all that.
It was quite the mouthful for at least the first 4 months, which is why we only have 12 people in there, I think.
No.
But
All right.
we are super excited. We've got a couple of, I think it's our first couple that we're interviewing.
It is indeed, yeah.
And I think that we are going to have a lot of fun with this. It's always much more dynamic when we have more people who own the business involved. So
Yeah,
I'm very
absolutely.
excited. And without any further ado, David, why don't you introduce our guests for
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So together on the screen with us are Brian and Maryann Remsburg, who after, I want to say 20 some odd years living elsewhere around the world, many different places. It's like shocking how many places, including Kenya, Saudi Arabia, some other places where you guys worked in education. You came back to the States. You're living here in the Portland metro area. And I'm not quite sure we'll learn the whole story, but you guys have opened up a coaching practice to help individuals discover adventure in their lives, just like you've experienced yourselves. And so we're going to be tapping into a little bit of what you're working on in your business and see if we can be of some assistance in the process that we typically go through as well. So before I introduce you, I just want to kind of remind everybody of the process that we go through with our clients. If you haven't seen this before, this is what I have recently dubbed, and maybe Ken likes this, maybe he doesn't. He doesn't like it. I call it the revenue machine because basically the idea behind this is it's a systematic approach. It's a machine that helps you structure your business in a way to realize revenue in an orderly and systematic fashion. And so this is something we will probably return to at some point during our conversation because it's really the core of the way that we approach business and business systems and business structure. So without further ado, why don't I hand it over to Maryann and Brian just to do a quick introduction of yourselves and how you got to this place that you're in right now, running your coaching practice.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. How did we get to where we are today? Well, we started out as educators in Kenya just soon after college and wanted to go have our own adventure. You know, we thought a few years international. In fact, we thought 2. We're like, okay, 2 years international, that'll be this great grand adventure in our lives. And then we'll come back to kind of normal America. And 2 years there led into a 3rd year, and then 12 years in Saudi Arabia and 3 years in South Korea, traveling to 40 some countries. We just really loved that life of putting ourselves in new challenging experiences and growing from them, meeting people from all over the world, getting to work with people in the education field. Eventually, Brian is a principal and I was a school counselor.
The schools we worked at had 40 to 50 different nationalities in it. And so it was very diverse. We lived with those people in the community as well. So really had our kids had friends from all around the world. And so they are very actually colorblind. I'm actually physically colorblind. They're actually racially colorblind. And so, yeah, we just we loved our time. We thought, like Maryann said, it was just going to be a few years, and it turned into 18. And then came back to the U.S. 3 years ago and really wanted to help others live adventurously, not necessarily have to travel overseas and go live overseas, but just the whole mindset of being open to challenging yourself, putting yourself in more difficult situations. And so we started a coaching company called Adventurous Life.
Excellent. So what was the impetus? I mean, obviously you came back and you were professional educators. What made you want to make a change?
So we had this idea at some point in our careers that we really wanted to move into coaching. We love the coaching model, and we had already used coaching quite a lot in the education field. And so that kind of became the direction that we wanted to go. We decided, you know, I guess the adventurous mindset, okay, no time like the present, even though we have 4 kids at home, technically 4 teenagers right now in our house. we just felt like it was the right time to go for it as we came back. And so just being able to support people in a different way, I guess, than formal education, but really we want to help people move forward. And because we saw such growth in our own lives, every time, like Brian said, we're not telling people you have to have like the traditional adventure, go move to Saudi Arabia or go, motorcycle across Africa, although he really likes that kind of, the motorcycle part. But we're saying whatever your adventure is, step out on it.
Excellent. For me, it was about 7 years ago, I actually saw coaching in practice. I had stepped out of the school system and was working with adult training. And our leadership center at the company I was working at in Saudi Arabia was doing coaching for the supervisors. And I just saw the impact that it had in conjunction with training as well. And I said, you know what, that's what I want to do someday. And so I actually started taking classes back then in education. Because I had gone in after that training, I'd gone back and was a principal. And so I used the coaching model with my teachers, and I just, out of all the things I did within a school system, that's what I really loved and was passionate about. And so we just said, hey, if we could do that full time, that would be awesome, just to be able to, because we really love to help people maximize their potential and just see, we're really focused on growth and continuing learning, and to be able to help other people do that and not just kind of stay in the mundane and be apathetic. And so we just really want to help kind of push people along, because that's really where we think life's all about. So
sure. And so you've been running this business how long now?
Just over a year.
Officially, we started the name just under a couple of years ago, but really like going and having a vision more so for what we want to do with it. Yeah, is about just over a year. Yeah. So as far as that side, we were in education. That's a little different than being entrepreneurs in the business world. So.
And so you now have kind of a structure to the business. Can you kind of walk us through how the business works? Do people find you? Do you meet with people one-on-one, in groups? Are they in person, virtual? Is it a programmatic thing, or do you say, hey, it's like a therapist where you meet once a week and decide if you're going to meet again? How does it work?
That's a great question. So really the heart of our company is coaching. So having clients. So yes, meeting one-on-one right now is the preferred method, although we will work with groups as well. But in coaching, we either meet, well, not during COVID, but we meet one-on-one in person. We also do it through Zoom like this, and over the phone as well, because I've coached people from back east, overseas, and we've worked with people all around the world. So using technology is a great way. So that's really the heart of what we do. We're actually putting together a book right now, which really helps explain Adventurous Life and a process that people would go through when choosing an adventure. So that's going to be a significant part of our company, where we'll actually go and teach that to whether a company wants us to come in and teach that, or we're also going to have what's called ventures, and we're going to have local ventures, and we're also going to have international ventures. So the local ventures will be basically taking content from our book, which it's called 7 Coordinates of Adventurous Living. So it's 7 different coordinates or principles of what adventure really looks like. And so for the local ventures, we'll have day activities. There'll be like experiential workshops where people can come, they'll get some content, they'll do a fun activity, challenging activity, get to know other people, have some coaching involved with that, and really just kind of see what coaching's all about and what living adventurously is about. And then we'll also have international trips that will take people on trips starting next year for about 10 days. And throughout the whole time, each day will have a different focus area. And then the activities for that day will really be centered on that focus area. So, and then we have other things like Maryann does a career assessment.
I'll just say a little bit more about what we're currently doing, because Brian told you a lot about what we're going to do, kind of the plan. But so as far as our one-on-one coaching, I also do career assessments and consultations. So I'll meet with They can be in any stage, but a lot of high school students, what's next for you? What does your adventurous life look like that really fits you and who you are?
Okay.
So I do that. That's usually one-on-one by Zoom all over the world, actually. And also we've done some retreats, but that's like Brian said, we've kind of morphed those now to be more one-day workshops and then an international trip will be how that looks. And then like right before COVID, Brian was working like with a nonprofit group and he did some teaching to the whole organization and then one-on-one coaching with each member. So that's kind of that group coaching or that company coaching that we can do to come in and support a smaller company as far as what's your vision and what role does each person play in that. So that's some of what we're doing right now.
Interesting. So I want to get to a point that I think I saw Ken look up at something you said when you started talking about the students and some of the career stuff. So you have something very specific there that you were doing. You talked about Brian's work with nonprofit and then the individual employees within the nonprofit. Very clear and specific projects and specific audiences. What is causing you to want to leap from that to something that's a little bit less clear in terms of your ability to market it? Adventurous Life. I don't know what that is, but there's very clearly defined parameters around that other stuff. Why the change?
Well, I suppose we do like working with different kinds of people. We like variety. We like change. So honestly, I don't think it would be enough just to over and over and over do the same kind of career consultation. However, I love it. But I also love working with entrepreneurs, especially women that are, this is for me, especially ones that are stepping out and they're trying that new business and they're putting themselves out there and they need that mindset. You know, for me, I'm like, okay, I want to work with them too. So maybe this is what you're going to be is like, no, don't try to work with them all. But those are, women I've been coaching and I love that. And so that's also kind of a passion where I'm like, well, I don't want to give up the one for the other, because those are areas. So I guess our Encompass has been people that are looking to step out, find that next. And that's more general, I guess. But yeah, you're right. These are some specific niches under that. So
I would say it actually started broader. Like you asked, what was the change to go kind of more broad? It actually started broader, and we've been trying to narrow it down.
This is narrowed.
Yeah, it is. And so we really, I think when we very first started, it was like, we'll work with anybody who wants to live adventurously, But then trying to define that, writing our book has really helped define that. Really, what does that ideal client look like? And so I think our hope has been is when we get the message out to a broader audience, there's people that kind of grab on and say, yeah, I want to work with those people because this really resonates with me. Their message really resonates with me. And so we get a lot of people that come from that. But then also we have been, like with the career and the training that I did, we are trying to narrow down on what, who are those ideal clients that we want to work with and trying to get that message out as well. So I don't think we've changed. We're trying to narrow it down. But I think that's been probably the hardest thing over the last year, is to really try to narrow, because I think we are just kind of more, I don't know, we're kind of just like to work with anybody, and I know that doesn't work in business. So that's been the challenge for us. So coming from an education point too, it's like, hey, we'll work with anybody.
That walked in the door.
That's good. All right, Ken, I know you've been chomping at the bit to jump in.
So I guess my first question is, with the students that you're working with right now, what's leading them to you? Is it them seeking you out, or is it primarily their parents seeking you out?
Yeah, both ways. I mean, usually, this week I had 3 kids who did all the contact with me, but usually it's a parent, but because their kid is stressed out because they don't know what they're doing, or the parent's stressed out because they're like, what are you doing next year? And they don't know. So I am working with them. I also have worked with a few mid-careers with this as well. And then also, and one I really enjoyed was retirees who are like, okay, I'm retired, but I still want to have purpose. So it's not completely only that high school student, but it's probably who I'm marketing is the parents. So like we talked about, kind of our ideal that we're working with is probably that 40 to 60-year-old range who's thinking of themselves. So it's their kids.
Oop.
Uh-oh.
Looks like we lost Ken.
He didn't like my answer.
I guess not.
Ken, fine.
Well, he'll come back again
Okay.
in just a moment. Oh, now we lost Brian because they turned square. All right, there we go. We can see you both again. Yeah, no, I know he's still there. So here he comes back. There we go. All right, Kendall. All right, we see you again.
Inexplicable.
Hey! I said I thought you didn't like my answer.
No, I'm
out of here. This lady has no idea.
I can still hear you. So I wasn't even able to say that I hear your answer. I don't like your answer. But I don't like it for maybe the reason you would think.
Okay.
Okay. For me, business is about predictability. Okay. And my guess, and this is just a blind guess, and you can feel free to say, Ken, you're wrong. With the various ways that you're getting customers, what I typically see is that revenue does this.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be relatively accurate?
Mm-hmm. We are not to a predictable state.
Right. And the reason you're not at a predictable state, in my experience, is because when you're sending marketing messages to 3 different groups, right? Or really 4 different groups, students, parents, mid-career, retiree, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens is you're dividing your forces, right? And in the same way that if we needed to go take a hill, we're going to send the soldiers up one side of the hill, right? Not up all 4 sides at the same time, right? We need to do that with our most important soldiers, which are our dollars, right?
Or time.
Or maybe time.
Yeah.
But dollars, right? Especially in the stage that you guys are in, right? Mm-hmm. And so my concern is we're getting business from all these sources, but we don't know what it actually costs for us to get a client from any of those sources specifically. And so I think one of the things to consider is, well, which of these 4 different options where you can do coaching is actually most profitable for you? Which one's actually the best business, right? Like, I want to put on my cold, hard capitalist hat for a minute and just say, where are you actually driving profit to the business, right? Because if we're going to all these different sources, I've never seen anyone who in an early stage and has a lot of targets knows what their actual acquisition cost for any of those targets are, right? And what that then leads to is you have no idea where you should spend time, money, effort.
Well, I can tell you right off, the high schoolers come in, I mean, definitely the most.
Okay.
Yeah. So the marketing I put into that is definitely, that's the return that's coming back. So you're saying just stick with that then.
What I'm saying is you have to have systems in place to measure what that return actually is. Right? So let's say, for example, you do 5 high schoolers and then you have 5 parents, right? Well, the high schooler may convince their parent to spend a couple $100s, right? But the parent may be willing to spend thousands of dollars because they realize a bad choice to start college, right? Versus maybe something else could be a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 loss.
Yeah.
Right? But the way you're going to message that and speak to those audiences are radically different. Right? And also who ultimately is doing the selling. Right? Because if you've got a system that says, look, I'm going to go to the high schooler who's going to sell the parent who's going to pay me, that's a very different sales process altogether. Right? You have to worry about arming your advocate and all of these other pieces, as opposed to going direct to the parent, which says, look, I can have one message, and whether the kid likes it or not, they're coming here, right? And so it's making that decision of well, which of those 2 models? I may get more high schoolers, but what's my actual net profit from those high schoolers, and how does that compare to when a parent is coming in the door? Does
And
that make
remember, we're just talking about one of several things that you guys mentioned, including, the older individuals, organizations, nonprofits, right? All which have very different process for acquisition and very different reasons why they would want to come work with you.
Mhm.
And so when you take all of those and you say, okay, well, what's the commonality? I guess adventure. And then you start using this term adventure, and then it doesn't resonate with any of them, because adventure isn't what you were selling the students or the nonprofit or the senior, maybe the mid-career person who has some understanding of, I want to make a transition but I don't know how, I want to have an adventure, but suddenly you've muddied your message in order to reach more people about something. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Ken is very, very correct about the process for getting those individuals in the door and understanding the dollar amounts that are involved in both shelling out and then getting back. But you have to look at each one of these scenarios have a different set of factors related to all of those dollars as well, right?
Yeah.
that for me, the biggest reason to niche and to narrow your focus is not to limit what you do, right? Is we like I'm kind of with you guys, and David can attest to this. I go kicking and screaming into a smaller and smaller and smaller offer and market all the time. Like he for a year and a half has been punching me in the head. We've got to get smaller. We've got to get smaller. We've got to get smaller. Right? Because I feel emotionally like, but I can help everyone. Right? But practically, is it the right business move to do so? So for example, you guys run the company. If someone were to come in who was not one of you two as the new CEO, would they be in a position where they would say the last CEO was doing a great job?
They'd say we're working our tails off.
Yeah.
Right? But that's not the question, right? It's not how hard
Depends what you mean by a good job.
a good job in putting the business's interest above our own interests.
Yeah, I think we're definitely trying to go that direction, but like there's a lot to put in place to learn. But I think we've made some really good moves that direction, definitely.
One of the things that we've done like over the last 4 to 5 months is we haven't pushed out as much. We haven't done much marketing, and we're not really trying to get a lot of clients at today. We're really doing this big push for September where we launch our book and a workbook and some other materials. And then after that, September, October, November, then we're really marketing the message. So this is really timely to kind of help us even think through, what is that message going to be that we are going to market? And I think up to this point, we kind of have been experimenting with, with some of these different areas and kind of saying, okay, where are we really going to focus our energy and attention? And
now the book is a pretty clear message and process in itself. So we're trying to do it more like, okay, there's more options besides just me sitting down with someone one-on-one or call one-on-one. And that's the only, that's what we have. We have these different ways that we're trying to get the message out in different formats, that we don't have to be always one-on-one with someone for them to hear our message and get to know us and feel like they can connect with that. Yeah. So that's kind of our hope and our goal of where we're going with that.
Okay. Let's change gears a little bit, because I want to get to the thing that we had discussed in advance of our broadcast and what I've shared with people that we were going to be talking about, which is the offer that you make. And I think this is going to have a direct impact on what we've just been talking about, which is how do you present something, a book offer, right? What is the book going to lead people to? You've talked about before our broadcast started, the fact that you are thinking about revamping your website to be more of a funnel process where somebody lands on the website and is guided to through a process to make a decision to work with you. So do you want to talk a little bit about sort of what you have envisioned for the book, and then maybe we can touch on the website a little bit too, as it pertains to what is it that you're offering once somebody comes into your world?
Yeah, so we've actually, our book's going to be launched out in September, and we've been working with a book launching company, and they're actually going to be creating a book funnel website. And so our book goes on the funnel. They do a mass marketing to millions of people to come. Well, first of all, they can download our book the first week for free, but then after that, they would come to our book funnel and they get a free plus shipping book from us. And so with that, then there's bumps and upsells and downsells as normal funnels have. So within that, they would get the free book plus the shipping, and then some of the other products that we'll have in there we're creating a workbook to go along with the book that we encourage people to do, because it will be more interactive for them and a lot of reflection, and so that'll be something that they can get from there as well. We're going to have a audio book as well, and then we're going to make some videos that unpack an assessment. So the assessment is called the Core Values Index, and we're going to have them take the assessment and really tie that in with how that relates to the adventurous message we're talking about, because it really, what it measures is their drive, what motivates them. And really, as we talk about 3 different zones in our book, maybe I'm getting off a little bit here, but we have the zone of comfort, the zone of challenge, and that's crazy zone. So what we encourage people to do is step out of that zone of comfort into that zone of challenge. So with that assessment, then it measures really what's going to be their greatest fear, what's going to be one of their biggest obstacles, and what's going to be their biggest motivator to step into that. And it really gives this great report to do that. So we'll unpack that with videos. So then as they're checking out, they can say, oh, I want to get that as well, because it'll tie in well with the book. And then also we're going to have a membership in there as well, so that they can join and get extra benefits from being a member, an Adventurous Life member, and get access to resources that other people can't, be the first to know about upcoming events, and get discounts
members events online and things. So, and then that kind of leads to the ventures, hopefully the international trips, but it all is leading to coaching. So the working with us from that.
Okay. So why does somebody want the book in the first place? What is the message that leads them to say, oh, I need that book?
They are wanting something different. So they're either feeling stuck, or they're in a transition. They're in that time where they're like, yes, I need more. I want more out of life. It's not what I was hoping it was going to be, or it's not quite like what I'm thinking that my life might have been at this point. And I want something more. I'm stepping out in something more. I need someone to come along and support me and give me kind of a process. So I want adventure. What's that process to get it?
A couple of months ago, I was sitting by a guy at a coffee shop. Didn't know him. He sat down at the table. He started talking. He'd worked for 30 years for the same company. He said basically when he retired, he goes, I look back and I see I was a slave to that company. He said it was just to pay the bills, and really hated it. And I thought, it's for that guy 20 years ago. The guy that's stuck in something and doesn't have the courage maybe to step out, doesn't know there's another option, doesn't really know the process, the mindset that you would need to not stay in a mundane life. If that's, and somebody that works in the same career is not necessarily in a mundane life, but somebody that
he's feeling stuck.
If he's feeling stuck there, doesn't really see how he can explore other options, this book really will take him through that process. And it's really about growth. And that's the benefit of doing it is growth and living a life that's fulfilling.
Okay. There was a big difference between the way that each of you just explained what it is that you are selling. Maryann, you started by talking about transition and change and desire, and a bunch of what I will often refer to as coach jargon language, right? And then Brian, you started, although you reverted into the coach jargon too. You started by actually sharing a very specific story. This guy giving up 20 years of his life to the corporation that he worked for, and wished he had made some better decisions earlier on. Okay, which of those two do you think a general population who you market to is going to resonate with more? Yeah. And so how do you position this book in front of individuals based on where they see themselves at that moment in life, rather than having to educate them that, well, what you're really feeling is like you are going through this transition and you have a desire to do something more or be something, because that's not what we think in our heads. And that is the key to this chart that I keep putting back up on the screen, and how you get them to start at the beginning on that left-hand side, where you're talking about attracting traffic. So if you got this book funnel out there and you're trying to get people to pick up this book, how do you get them to project themselves into a situation rather than have to get educated about, this is what you're going through, by the way, you general people out there who have some desire that's hard to put your finger on. That's the key.
Well, what's that line you were just working on for the website too? You're passionate and driven.
Yeah, you're ready to take on that next challenge. That's kind of what we've been thinking about. The person that's really ready to take on the next challenge, whether it's in life, whether it's in their career, whether it's in transition.
I got news for you. I'm not sure that there's too many more people who are thinking, they wake up in the morning, what's that next challenge that I'm going to take on? Right? And that's where a lot of us as entrepreneurs, my partner here included, are focused on, well, how can I reach as many people? I guess I got to generalize what I do. He and I both ran our own individual marketing agencies, and we would just, we'd meet people and we'd say, we do marketing for business. What does that mean? Right? Everybody has their own interpretation of that. It's a little bit easier to I think, for the general business owner to grasp what we do compared to the general person to grasp what you guys do. But as soon as we started saying, we run Facebook and Google ads, right? Then people had a clear sense. Or we do, which is what we do now, we do marketing strategy. Strategy? What's marketing strategy? Oh, tell me more, right? That's a very different focus. That somebody says, oh, I've been throwing stuff against the wall for years. I need a strategic approach to what I'm doing, right? So what is it that people are actually thinking? What we say in the copywriting world, what's the conversation that's going on inside their head that you can then put yourself in front of, that is a logical segue from where they are actually thinking, the language that they're using, the circumstances that they're actually in, the experience that they're having, and see your marketing message and go, I need that book. And that's the trick. And that is why some form of narrowing or niching is much, much more effective ultimately at getting people in the front door.
Yeah, that's actually something that Brian had said to somebody you're talking to, is that idea of, if the same thing's been running through your head for years and years, then you need to talk to us. So, but that's not like, now is that a niche?
Yeah, if you're having the same conversation over and over in your head, but no change.
Yeah.
You need a coach.
So what I would say is in that the niche is, so a lot of people think of a niche as a vertical, right? I work with plumbers, right? I work with students in their final year of high school going into their career, right? That's what most people think of a niche as. That is a way to niche, right? But you could also niche by looking at individual characteristics, right? For example, we have a fellow who is a financial advisor for single women. Right? And so for them, that is their niche. Is you're a single woman, and that's what they're niching off of, if you will. And so you could say, look, we want to coach those looking for adventure, right? Those who are trying to overcome challenge, right? But I think that what you have to do to narrow that is you have to define what that means, right?
From their perspective.
From their very important, from their perspective, because think about it. If a guy comes to you and he says, "Hey, I definitely want to embrace challenge, and my challenge is how do I stay married?" Right? Is that what you're really looking for? Is that what you're wanting to go after? Right?
And that's the interesting thing, because it's like, we can coach those people.
Right.
That's not necessarily who we are wanting to coach.
Right.
All the time.
All the time. Right. All the time. Like, we'd be fine to coach with somebody like that. But
my point in that is to say you can do all of this. Right. My guess is that if we can find a spot that's here that is the most profitable person for you to coach. Right. And I don't mean that just in the money sense. I mean that in the enrichment of life for them, for you, and for the business. Right. And that's when we're narrowing down, we're saying, all of this, your capability is so broad. Your challenge is saying, well, where is the spot that I am most effective for the people I'm helping? Right. For me and for my pocketbook. That's the hardest part about all of that is that takes some discovery, and it's not I'm just going to target, 35 to 40-year-old professionals, because it's overly broad. What are the characteristics that make somebody interested in this? Is it they like the outdoors? They like to travel, right? If you guys and your story drives around travel, right? I imagine that somebody who says, I'm up for adventure, but for me, an adventure is getting on a dirt bike and America only, right? Maybe, but is that who you resonate best with? Is that who you're going to identify best with? And is that going to be who you perform best with? And so I think that's the question. Or another way to look at niching is, well, who is my absolute perfect client? If I could craft that person.
And are you saying you just market to that person and then you can still broaden while you're working, but your whole just trying to get them is this small?
So what I would say is where you're, and David and I do this, right? Full disclosure, this is a lot of how we do things. We spend our money and our efforts from a marketing perspective very, very tight. That doesn't mean we don't pick up clients in this bubble. It used to be this bubble, and now it's here.
So,
right?
so you want to explain what we do? We marketing strategy, a systematic approach to financial advisors. That's it. That's who we market to. Now, who do we work with, Ken?
Mostly small business owners.
Yeah, we work with marriage coach. We work with grief coach. We work with a hydraulics consulting firm. We work with plenty of financial advisors, restaurants. Right. But who are we marketing to? These other guys who I didn't mention many of those, right? So that's one benefit to niching, is that your profile goes much, much higher, and then you get people coming to you and say, "I know you guys only work with X, but could you help me out too?" Right? That's one benefit. A second thing that's important to know is niche or target marketing doesn't have to be exclusive to one narrow focus. So if this magnet in this chart here that we're looking at is the book, right? And you figure out how to get people who are in the corporate space who want to get out on their own and start their own business to right. So it's a very specific desire they have that you articulate, and you say, oh, well, first step is reading our book. Okay. Then you go and find the woman who has been a stay-at-home mom all this time, and her kids are graduating and leaving the house, and she has an opportunity to finally, discover herself. Oh, well, you should read our book, right? And so you have all these paths in to the same solution, which is your offer, to then proceed, right? But they get connected with over their specific set of circumstances. So you can replicate that over and over and over again.
So I guess okay. Let me clarify what you're saying. So you're saying you can replicate it. So I can say this process solves this, this problem for this group of people.
Yes.
And it solves it for this group of people. But that kind of sounds like too many, not this. So how do you put those two ideas together?
Yeah. So what you're doing is I'll give you an example. We have a client down in Texas. They're a summer camp. Years ago when we started, they had they had 4 main target groups, right, that we went after. Today, I think when we're advertising, it's in the mid to high 20s. Now, those could still be fit under those main 4, but we've found, hey, by getting more specific and more specific and more specific, we're still serving our purpose, but we're reaching into tighter and tighter groups of individuals while still serving the same end goal. And so what I would say is niching does not mean our business only works with this thing. It means our focus is this, right? And as we expand, our focus then becomes this. And as we expand again, our focus then can shift over here, right? But you're not, and this is the big mistake that I've made repeatedly, is if you're saying, well, all of this can be my focus, right? The challenge is you don't have the time or money to actually make that a meaningful focus. So for example, do you guys know how much Bud Light spends on marketing annually?
No clue.
No idea.
No clue. Take a random guess.
$3 million.
Oh, I was going to say like $1 billion.
I'm guessing Maryann's closer than Brian. I don't know.
So they spend, technically no, they spend about 400 million.
Hey, we're in the middle. See, that's why we're a good team.
Here's what I want you to think about. That's more than $1 for every man, woman, and child in the United States.
Wow.
Right? Now, unless I've missed something, y'all don't have that level of money to reach an entire subsect. Right?
Not yet.
No, not yet. No.
So one of the ways that niching becomes a functional tool is you say, look, I've got $15,000 this year to spend on marketing, right? I have to pick what's the biggest group I can reach effectively, repeatedly for $15,000, right? And I hope that kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
Right? That's like a millionth of a cent for every man, woman, and child in the United States. As opposed, and the concept there then is, well, I'm going to spend my money on the people that are most valuable, right? So, you guys ever go to a Blazers game here in town?
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. You ever have like front row, like courtside, floor level seats?
Not yet.
Not yet. Perfect. I have
get that Bud Light budget.
I have a few times. And what's interesting is I imagine that when you came back from halftime, you did not have a printed score sheet from Pacific Automation on your seat waiting for you, telling you what happened in the first half.
No,
never
seen
actually.
that.
Now, when I sat in floor seats, I did have that, oddly enough. Right? And so what has that particular company done? They've said, look, if you can spend upwards of $200 on a basketball ticket, chances are your business needs some printing. And that's how that is a way that they have functionally niched. Instead of saying, look, we're going to give all 30,000 people in the Rose Garden, 25,000 people in the Rose Garden, we're giving it to the 1,000 people that are most likely. right? And that's the same thing we're doing is we're saying, look, I'm going to pay to have my marketing message in front of the 2,500 or 5,000 people that are most likely to buy what I have to offer and be my best customer. That doesn't mean I don't take on other customers. It simply means I don't waste time, money, and energy going after them.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And would you do that the same on the website also?
I would do that everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
One clear message all across the board about who it is that you're serving, what it is you're solving for them in a way that they understand because it's how they perceive their situation.
Yeah.
But then what about when you do have all those different targets?
You create multiple websites.
Or different pages on the site or different funnels into it. There's many different ways to do it, but you get one up and running, you see how it works, you get it working like a well-oiled machine, and then you just take that and you swap out the words and you do the same thing for somebody else and somebody else and somebody else.
And so, but within that, you're conserving resources, you're operating in a lean fashion, right? The number one, they say 85% of small businesses go out of business in the first 5 years. In my opinion, that is because of wasted capital, not because 85 or 90% of us have bad ideas, right?
Yeah.
It's that money gets spent on things that doesn't bring money back into the business. And there was a book I was reading called The Road Less Stupid. And one of the things that they talked about in this, the guy's it's kind of like a advice to the chairman of the board type book. And this guy said something that for me as a small business owner is like, oh, I constantly have to think about this. Your job as the CEO is risk management, not growth. And what's interesting about that is if you have a 10% chance to win the lotto and make $1 million and a 90% chance to fail and lose everything, are you taking that bet? Most of us say no.
See, that's a problem with us. we're maybe a little too adventurous. We gotta tone it a bit.
Well, I
we
get
need some bankers. We need some bankers to join our team.
For real. Yes, I hear you though. That is wise.
And so it's how do I operate with wisdom, right? Using more lean principle to say, look, I don't want to do more than I have to. I don't want to spend more than I have to because I recognize there may come a time when I need to use that capital quickly and effectively. Right. So you start niching and you find out that for you, hey, for every, and this is a true story. We have a client that we discovered that if we spent money in a certain place, for every $300 we spent or so, they were making $5,000. Okay.
Yeah.
How many $300 checks do you think you want to be able to write at that point in time? A lot.
As many as you can.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you took that 90-10 bet and you don't have any checks that you can write, what you've done is you said, well, I've been building this funnel and this process, but now I can't scale it. If that makes sense. And ultimately what that means, and this is the most important thing to realize, is what that ultimately means is the impact you guys have on the world is lessened. Right? It's not about personal poverty. It's about communal poverty that a bad decision forces upon everyone that you could have helped.
I like that. That's a good point.
All right. So now if I were to ask you, so what's the funnel going to be now? Do you have ideas bubbling in your head like, oh, we could do this one or could we do that one? Or is this a struggle?
I mean, we've had ideas, but I'd say it's a struggle. I mean, we've talked about, with my past school administrator background, I've thought about working with educators, leaders in the past. We've also talked about people transitioning, like out of the, not transitioning, sorry, moving from one country to the other, like they're working for a corporation and they're, moving to another
Expats.
country, and just expats, and
Yeah.
coaching them
Go in
through
one
that
direction or
process.
the
And,
other.
so we've talked about that. What other ideas? I mean, career
Then
changes.
you have,
like Maryann's talked about.
entrepreneurs, the career
Right.
transitions, the the more traditional adventurers who want to take the big adventure and then apply that to life. Those who those would be their kids are gone, they're still have health and money to spend, and okay, that's a good group to really think this through. What are you going to do with the years you have left? So no, nothing's like boom, that should be it. But
So I
you
think
just have to make a choice and narrow in, I guess.
one of the, well, it's not simply just making a choice, it's making an informed choice. And I think Ken gave you some examples earlier on about, just understanding viability, profitability, how large that subset might be, how responsive they will be, how big of a pain they are experiencing and therefore want to address it versus how kind of, it would be nice someday desire that they might have, right? So if you were to go and take the list that you just shared with us and write them all out and then sort of think through all of those pieces, I bet you could figure out that some will probably rise to the top and some will fall to the bottom based on, all of those factors that I just rattled off. And so that might be a worthwhile exercise to figure out, who's the first and the second and the third that we're going to put in front of the book to try to test out whether we can get people interested. And that is how you then form the offer that you're making, which leads them into this, wild ride of get a book for the $6.99 shipping and then be offered this video add-on and then be offered the membership. They'll buy into all that stuff if they know the problem that is being solved on the front end. If it's vague adventure, I don't know what that is exactly, it's going to be a lot harder to do those upsells and downsells through the balance of the funnel because they're not entirely sure what it is that they're getting out of it in the first place.
Yeah. No, that's a good exercise. We're coaches. We love action steps. So thank you for the action step after the call.
Excellent.
Action step's going to be to find a time right away to go back and watch this video so we can,
I know he was trying to take notes. I'm like,
notes,
this is, we got this later.
Can't download it until it's rendered, but yeah, you're welcome to it. So guys, people can have the opportunity to check you out now, and then maybe they'll put on their calendars 6 months from now to go back to the website and see what's changed. Where can they find you?
At adventurouslife.net. And hopefully it's not going to be 6 months. It's hopefully just be about 2 months for the website to be changed. And then in September, definitely there's going to be a lot more on there as well for services.
Brilliant.
Our Facebook also is Adventurous Life, Brian and Maryann Remsburg. We do lives there every Tuesday and Friday at 11:11. So they can hear more about our message there as well. We'd love to have them join us.
Awesome. I think you've done this once or twice. It sounds like you knew how to rattle all that off. That was great. Ken, any final words of wisdom?
Hey, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining us. It was an absolute joy to have you guys here. We really appreciate you guys opening up and sharing with our community, not only what it is that you do, but really kind of a behind-the-scene look at the business. I know that it's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, but I hope that you realize that there's a lot of other business owners who are in the exact same boat and having the exact same struggle as you are. And I hope you know that as they watch this video, they are going to be blessed by your guys' openness. So thank you for that.
Thank you to you guys. I mean, you guys just that little bit of time and those difficult questions to answer right now are really going to help us to narrow this in and figure out who to target. I think it really helped clarify because I have kind of struggled with the whole niche and like you were saying, Ken, when you're talking about kind of kicking and screaming, that's how I feel like I've been as well. Kind of that emotional, like, no, I don't want to just cut everybody else out. But I really like what you're saying about the energy goes into focusing on those people, but we still work with everybody else. So I think that really kind of a nugget for me that will be really helpful going forward.
Excellent.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up for today. Thank you guys for your time, and thanks for those of you who took time to watch. And we hope to see you all back here again sometime soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.